Why are you standing up for this bag again, Kelly? Blair complained. I thought that a law enforcement officer would have more sense than to believe in tarot readings, Kevin said mockingly as he glared at the bearded man wearing the cheesy purple robe. You guys go ahead and have fun. I'm going to look for my wife. Hey, don't be in such a hurry to leave. This guy's pretty good. Don't you want to find out what he has to say about your future? Blair bellowed as he quickly pulled Kevin back. You really ought to give him a try. He's eerily accurate, Officer Emmett added. Whether he's accurate or not doesn't matter to me. I don't believe in any of this stuff, Kevin replied coolly. He started to walk away, but the man stopped him. He couldn't let Kevin leave yet because Blair had ordered him to embarrass him. Even if he couldn't beat him in a fight, he could at least insult him. I told you I don't believe in any of this. Now let me go, Kevin ordered him. Kevin didn't know what kind of game Blair was playing, but he was sure that this guy had some tricks up his sleeve. Besides, he still had to find Lily, and he really didn't have the time to waste on this nonsense. Don't be angry, young man. I'll do your reading for free. Professor Futurioso smiled as he started to shuffle the deck of cards. He deliberately acted shocked. I hope you're not the fool that showed up in Kelly's reading. You do realize that as long as you stay in contact with Kelly, you'll only bring her bad luck. In addition, you won't have any good fortune in your own life either. You'll be forced to spend the rest of your life mooching off your wife's family, he added. That's another good reading. You really know what you're doing, Blair laughed out loud. Don't listen to him, Kevin. Even a good tarot reader can make mistakes, Officer Emmett reassured Kevin. But Kevin wasn't upset at all. He just stood there and looked at the man from head to toe, trying to figure him out. The more he looked at the guy, the more he thought something wasn't right about him. His robe didn't seem to fit him right, and his goatee looked like it had been glued onto his chin. It really doesn't bother me, Kevin stated frankly as he turned his head and looked at Officer Emmett. Don't tell me you actually believe this guy. Well, everything he said about me was true, Officer Emmett said firmly. She had no doubts that the tarot reader was genuine. Face it, Kevin. There's nothing you can do to change your fate, Blair sneered. So, you're really that good, are you? Kevin glared at the man. Since you're so skilled, did you see that today would turn into a complete disaster for you? I only know what the cards tell me, he responded indignantly. Ma'am, my advice is to stay away from this man. He can only bring you bad luck. If you continue to have anything to do with him, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Blair took Officer Emmett by the arm and pulled her away from Kevin. See, Kelly, I'm not the only one who's told you that. Kevin's a bad influence. Officer Emmett nodded regretfully and started to turn away from Kevin. She was very conflicted about the whole situation. Kevin could only sigh. He didn't want to interfere in Officer Emmett's life, but this person had gone too far. If you know so much about tarot cards, you should know that the Fool card can also mean a new beginning. Just because he's dressed in shabby clothing doesn't mean he'll bring misfortune. The other way to look at it is that someone will bring good things to Officer Emmett's life, Kevin explained so that everyone could hear him. They were all surprised to hear Kevin's interpretation of Officer Emmett's cards. Could he actually be right? The man was stunned and looked incredibly embarrassed. Blair had paid him a lot of money to trick Officer Emmett. How could this loser know so much about tarot readings? The guy had no idea how to respond. I've had it with this, Kevin scowled as he got right in his face. I think you're a fake, and I already predicted that today would be a disaster for you. Then Kevin shoved the man, sending him sprawling on the sidewalk in front of his kiosk. What are you doing, Kevin? You can't just hit him for no reason at all, Blair roared. He couldn't let Kevin ruin his plans like this, especially when Kelly was just about to say yes to setting a wedding date. He's right, Kevin. You can't just shove people around when you don't agree with them, Officer Emmett scolded him. But Kevin didn't pay any attention to their objections. He glowered at the man as he struggled to get up off the ground. Young man, You're letting your temper get the best of you, and now you're ignoring some very useful advice. If you don't change your ways now, you'll never get control of your violent urges." The man advised Kevin as he did his best to ignore the pain caused by his fall. By now, the crowd of onlookers was starting to defend him. "Just because he said something you didn't like, that's no excuse to get physical," an older gentleman shouted. "It's not his fault you don't believe what he said about you. He wasn't trying to hurt you," another onlooker chimed in. Blair was absolutely ecstatic when he heard what everyone was saying to Kevin. He'd embarrassed him, and all it had cost was a few bucks. But Kevin didn't care what any of these strangers were saying about him. He just reached out and pulled the man's fake goatee off his chin. "Did you see that? The fake tarot card reader has a fake beard," Kevin proclaimed as he held up the clump of hair for everyone to see. "You've gone too far. So what if I had a fake beard?" The man growled at Kevin. "What else about you is false?" Kevin glared as he grabbed the man's purple robe and yanked it off of him. The crowd was shocked for a moment and then broke into laughter. Under his robe, he was wearing a cheap suit. "Now what do you have to say for yourself?" Kevin asked him sternly. The man began to stammer as he searched for an explanation, but he knew he'd been caught. Kevin looked Officer Emmett in the eyes and gave her a wink. "So, you're a scam artist, are you? I didn't believe any of your nonsense in the first place," Officer Emmett told him as she pulled out her phone. "How about I get someone to take you down to the police station to find out who you really are?" Kevin was slightly amused by all this. Scammers are getting pretty good lately. This one actually had fooled a police lieutenant. "Please, help me, Mr. Blair," the man shouted as he broke into tears and continued to beg for mercy. "You have to do something. My mother-in-law is sick and I have 2 toddlers at home. My whole family depends on me to feed them. If I go to jail, what will happen to them?" "Get lost. Why the hell are you coming to me for help?" Blair said angrily as he pushed the man away. Officer Emmett had a hard time getting through to the station, and then realized they probably had a skeleton crew today because everyone was on crowd control for all the activity downtown. She couldn't call the regular 911 line because this wasn't that kind of an emergency. "I'm going to cut you a break," Officer Emmett told him firmly. "This is your chance to turn over a new leaf. If I ever catching you doing something like this again, or if I even hear that you've been ripping people off, I'll have you brought in and I'll throw the book at you." He'd really lucked out and he knew it. But Officer Emmett still hadn't gotten an answer from Kevin about the power pill.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.